I told my roommate it was time to start dating again. She smiled and said, "I already found someone." The moment those words left her lips, my heart stopped in a way I never expected. I had spent nearly 2 years convincing myself that I only cared about her as a friend, that the quiet ache I carried every time she smiled at someone else would eventually disappear. Instead, standing in our apartment kitchen in Portland, Oregon, with the evening sunlight spilling through the windows, I realized I had waited too long. She wasn't joking. She wasn't teasing me. The gentle smile on Sarah's face held a peace I hadn't seen in years, and somehow that frightened me more than anything else. Before we continue, if you believe everyone deserves kindness, second chances, and the courage to open their hearts again, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. When Sarah first moved into the apartment, she barely spoke. She had arrived carrying only a few suitcases and eyes that looked exhausted from crying too many nights in a row. I later learned that her engagement had ended just weeks before her wedding. The man she trusted had walked away without warning, leaving her with canceled plans, broken promises, and memories she couldn't escape. I was already renting the 2-bedroom apartment after my older brother moved across the country for work. Sharing the rent with a stranger seemed like a practical decision. I never imagined that stranger would slowly become the person I looked forward to seeing every single day. Life settled into a quiet routine. Every morning I made coffee, while Sarah watered the plants lining our balcony. She loved bringing life into empty spaces. Before long, the apartment that once felt cold and temporary became warm with little touches only she could create. There were candles on the shelves, fresh flowers on the dining table, and laughter echoing through rooms that had once been silent. Still, there was always sadness hidden behind her smile. She avoided conversations about relationships. Whenever friends invited her to parties where she might meet someone new, she politely declined. Every time someone mentioned dating, she changed the subject. I understood why. Some wounds refused to heal on anyone else's schedule. Months turned into a year. Without realizing it, we became each other's family. We celebrated birthdays together, because neither of us had relatives nearby. We watched old movies during rainy weekends. We cooked disastrous recipes that usually ended with ordering pizza. When I caught the flu, Sarah stayed awake through the night making soup and checking my temperature. When her grandmother passed away in Ohio, I drove 10 hours with her because she admitted she couldn't handle the trip alone. Somewhere during those ordinary moments, friendship quietly became something far deeper for me. The problem was fear. I had seen how fragile her heart still was. The last thing I wanted was to risk losing our friendship because of feelings I wasn't even sure she could return. So I convinced myself that staying silent was the safest choice. Then life started changing again. Sarah laughed more often. She began dressing with confidence, instead of simply trying to disappear into oversized sweaters. She started humming while cooking dinner. She even came home smiling after work, checking her phone more frequently than before. I noticed every little detail, even though I pretended not to. One Friday evening, while we were sitting on the balcony watching the sunset paint the sky orange, I finally said what had been on my mind for weeks. I told her that maybe it was time to start dating again. The words sounded supportive, but underneath them was fear. Fear that she already had. She looked at me for several seconds before smiling with surprising warmth. Then she quietly admitted she had already found someone. Everything inside me collapsed. I managed to smile back because that's what good friends do. I even congratulated her. But the rest of the evening felt like I was walking through a dream I couldn't wake up from. That night I barely slept. Every memory replayed in my mind. Every movie night. Every road trip. Every inside joke. Every time she leaned on my shoulder during thunderstorms. Because loud thunder reminded her of difficult memories, I wondered who this lucky man was. Was he someone from work? Someone she met at church? Someone she had known before moving to Oregon? Over the next few days, I noticed little things that made my imagination even worse. She smiled whenever her phone buzzed. She spent more time choosing what to wear before leaving for work. She seemed genuinely happy. I told myself I should be happy for her too. After all, hadn't I been encouraging her to move forward? But sometimes the hardest advice to give is the advice that quietly breaks your own heart. I decided something had to change. Instead of holding on to feelings that no longer mattered, I began searching for another apartment. Living together while she built a future with someone else would become impossible. I never told her why. I simply said I thought it might be time for both of us to have our own places. For the first time since we'd met, sadness returned to her eyes. She asked if she had done something wrong. I assured her she hadn't. But she looked unconvinced. The following Saturday, she asked if we could take one last drive to Cannon Beach before I moved out. It had become our favorite place over the years. The Oregon coastline always seemed capable of making complicated emotions feel smaller. We spent the afternoon walking along the shoreline as waves rolled across the sand. Neither of us spoke much. Sometimes silence carries conversations. Words never could. Eventually, we reached the same driftwood log where we had once watched a meteor shower months earlier. Sarah turned toward me with tears quietly forming in her eyes. She said there was something I deserved to know. The person she had found wasn't someone from work. It wasn't someone online. It wasn't someone from church. She explained that for months, she had been trying to find the courage to tell him how she felt. Every time she almost did, fear convinced her. He probably saw her only as a roommate and friend. Then she looked directly into my eyes. She admitted that person had been standing beside her, almost every day for the past 2 years. For a moment, the ocean disappeared. The wind disappeared. Everything disappeared except those words. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. I asked why she had never said anything. She smiled through tears and admitted she had been waiting for the right moment, afraid of ruining the one friendship that had slowly rebuilt her broken heart. Then she confessed something that changed everything. The reason she smiled when I suggested dating, again, wasn't because someone else had entered her life. It was because she believed I had finally noticed what had been there all along. I laughed. She laughed. Then we both cried. Years of unspoken feelings melted away in a single embrace. Sometimes love doesn't arrive dramatically. Sometimes it quietly grows while two people simply choose each other every ordinary day. The months that followed weren't perfect. We had difficult conversations about fear, trust, and the future. Healing from heartbreak wasn't something that disappeared overnight. But this time, neither of us carried those burdens alone. A year later, surrounded by close friends overlooking the same Pacific coastline where everything changed, I asked Sarah to marry me. She didn't hesitate. Her answer came with the same smile that had once nearly broken my heart. This time, those tears carried hope instead of pain. Today, whenever people ask how our relationship began, we usually laugh and tell them we were terrible at recognizing what everyone else could already see. Looking back, I realized something important. Sometimes we're so afraid of losing someone that we accidentally hide the very feelings that could bring us closer together. Love isn't always about perfect timing. Sometimes it's about having the courage to speak before silence convinces you it's too late. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more emotional stories that remind us how powerful kindness and second chances can be. Special request, before you leave, comment below with the words "love is worth the risk." We'd love to know how many people still believe that honest hearts can find their way back to each other. As we drove home from Cannon Beach that evening, the sunset painted the horizon in shades of gold and crimson, just as it had countless times before. The difference was that this time we weren't wondering what the future might hold. We were finally walking toward it together, grateful that two broken hearts had found healing not in perfection, but in patience, friendship, forgiveness, and the courage to finally tell the truth. Sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with strangers meeting for the first time. Sometimes they begin with two roommates who slowly become each other's home.